Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of my long format YouTube videos. This is exciting. I'm continuing this on a weekly basis. The first 2 episodes were pretty personal. I want to switch it up a little bit today and dive into really a topic that I have been thinking about a lot recently. I've seen a lot of content out there that relates to it. And I actually was reading a book recently that was unrelated to relationships. It was more just related to like self-improvement. And it absolutely, I think, is relatable to these relationship topics that I want to talk about today. So let's get into it. I think one of the hardest things for people to go through is the breakdown of a relationship. This is very relatable to me. It is what inspired my content back in 2020 when I first got on TikTok as I was going through a separation and divorce. And I really had this mindset that I really kind of created on my own, I feel like. I was reading some books to help me along, but I think that this was already sort of in me. I naturally like to take responsibility and accountability for everything that happens in my life. And I think that is key. I think that is actually what is lacking in many people, unfortunately, in today's society. I think especially for the younger generation. So I want to talk about that today. And I want to talk about what that looks like when there's the lack of that in content creation and in real life. This is it. This is my perspective. This is what helped me along with really my healing. I think that it is the difference between taking fault versus taking responsibility, right? So when something happens and you have something traumatic in your life, it's really hard. This takes time, right? Because you do feel like a victim, whether it's large or small. And I think in today's age, we are ultra sensitive. It's why there's cancel culture on the rise. We are ultra sensitive to even those little traumas, let's call them. They're small traumas. And we want to place blame immediately and shift fault and play the victim. And what that does is that it lets us just sit in misery, and it really takes away our power to control things in our lives. So I absolutely could have done that in 2020. I could have absolutely justified me sitting back as the victim. And trust me, I was not perfect. I absolutely had to do some things, like I vented to people. I let people, even on social media, in on what was going on and what was like happening to me. Not major details, but like still venting in many ways. And I think it is a process. So you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be like, oh, somebody stole from me and now I'm just like, I'm okay with that. So don't get confused. I do not think that this is something that can just happen immediately, but I do think that like once there's been time between the infraction that happened to you and, days, months, whatever it takes for you to vent, to be mad, to go through your emotions, I think that once those things are through, you really need to be able to take some of that responsibility. And I know that's really tough, like when you think about certain examples, right? Let's talk about cheating, because that's something that a lot of people are sensitive about, right? Because when there's a certain amount of accountability that people are pushing on the person that did not do the cheating, that had the cheating done to them, there's a lot of pushback. And I will say, like, I've even pushed back depending on the verbiage that creators use. I will push back because I don't want it to be blame that's being put on the person that did not do the infraction. That's not fair. That's actually placing fault where it should not lie. But I do think that there is responsibility there for what happened within the relationship to create the cracks. So they're two separate things, right? It's, let's just take the example. A woman was not even being sexual with her husband. That's something we hear about quite often. And that's a big crack within a relationship. And she is responsible for not addressing it. Whether it was the details of her just ignoring it or her just blatantly telling him, like, this is just not going to happen and you should be okay with it. You're married to me. Whatever the case is, it created the cracks that led to him making the poor decision and being at fault for that decision to step outside of the marriage. The responsibility that she had to the relationship does not equal the fault to the cheating that he did. Now, I know that most of my audience are men, and guys, I have heard it plenty of times from you that in your case, it was the woman that cheated on you. And I think that happens quite often. I think that happens more often than is even known or reported, because I think women are, first off, really good at hiding it. Unfortunately, women tend to be very emotionally intelligent, and so they're able to hide it a bit better. And I also think that I think that there's a lot more men out there that are willing to like try with a relationship after that has occurred within their relationship compared to women. Let me know if you guys disagree in the comments, but that at least has been what I've seen. So in this example between, the woman not being intimate with her husband and then the husband going off and stepping outside of the marriage, where do they need to heal? Like, let's say, because in most cases it doesn't end up working out, they don't stay together. What happens then? I think that a lot of people that have been cheated on, whether man or woman, they have a lot of difficulty moving forward in life because they can so easily just place blame consistently. And really, our culture and society allows for that. I think that in many cases, cheating is seen worse than a lot of other things. And so, all she has to do is mention that, and, she gets like a free pass for anything that she did in the relationship. And that's not really going to lead to her growth. Like, just because you're looking back at a relationship in which it ended because there was infidelity, it doesn't negate what happened in the relationship before that. So she does need to be willing to take responsibility and accountability for those things that led to a poor relationship structure. And it's when she doesn't, that's the issue. And it'll probably continue to happen to her, unfortunately, because she's not structuring her relationships in a solid way. And if she is willing to look and take some of that responsibility, and she has to be willing to take responsibility in the moment too for how she reacts and how she's co-parenting potentially, right? Like if there's children, she has to be responsible for, still creating a good co-parenting relationship. There can't be that animosity like constantly there, or reminding what had happened in the relationship. Like, that does need to be kind of put aside, and she needs to be able to move forward and just understand what you would do differently the next time in the next relationship. Now, on the other end, right, so the cheaters end, I think that this is where I have some of the problem, is when the cheater is placing the responsibility on that failed relationship for causing the cheating, right? Because then that's a lack of the cheater taking responsibility, and that will not move things forward. Like, they're actually acting as victim. So if their answer to their cheating is constantly, well, their partner did this or they didn't do that, they weren't being intimate with them, what did they expect? They couldn't get divorced because of the laws right now. It would have financially ruined them. I understand that some of those are very real things, but it takes away the responsibility. and that is actually going to hold you back from moving forward. This is talked about a lot, like having the victim mentality. I think that there are a lot of women that have that, unfortunately. And I get it. Like, there's been a lot of things in the past prior to the feminist movement that were absolutely hard for women and unfair. And I think that we've really moved forward. And there's been good things from the feminist movement, but there's also been a lot of this bad, really bad victim mentality that has come along with it, unfortunately, and that does not help women move forward at all. And I think men are seeing that, and I hear it often from men that, they just hate seeing the victim mentality, because, to be honest, men can't get away with that, like, in today's world. I mean, they will be looked at and, like, by another man. Like, that is not acceptable. Think about, like, the blue collar workforce, that just, it wouldn't fly. It just wouldn't fly. You just have to, you're working Monday through Friday plus weekends sometimes, and whatever's going on, you have a cold, whatever, it's like, you better, not be lazy. And you could be labeled as lazy, and if you're taking on that victim mentality, so it's not acceptable. It's very different, I think, for women right now, and men see that double standard, and it's really tough. The difference between taking fault and taking responsibility was really highlighted in a book that I'm reading right now, and it's this one, if anyone has read it. I haven't read through the complete book yet, but I'm nearing the end. But the chapter that I got to was about taking radical responsibility. And I love it because it's like the opposite of that victim mentality. And I think when I read through it, I was like, holy cow, like, this is exactly what I did, when I was going through my divorce without even realizing it. There were a lot of things that were happening in my life, but I can tell you that for some reason that year was, I just grew so much by taking responsibility for absolutely everything that I had in my power and in my control. And then I let go of everyone else's stuff that only they could control. And it was freeing, first of all, like, for anyone that tries to do this and get into that mindset, you will feel free and it will feel amazing. So just do it. That's what I recommend. Now, for a lot of guys out there that are struggling with dating, I think that even this is relatable to the struggles with dating, because I can see how a lot of men are starting to place, it depends on the man. It really does. And I don't think a lot of you guys that follow me are doing this. I think that I'm seeing it more in the manosphere of YouTube. And that is, there's blame getting placed on women and, like, how they're dating. And I do call that out because I think that behavior should be called out. But I don't think that you should ever look at it as a perspective of, I'm not in a relationship because women are just terrible right now. It's not going to lead to any kind of, like, positivity or growth. You're not going to be able to control anyone else's actions when you're dating them. Like, all you can do is be your best person and control what you have control over and take responsibility for those decisions and actions. And the same goes for women. Like, I think that for two people that are both doing it, I think that those are the couples that end up working out. It's just a matter of finding that other person that's also willing to take radical responsibility. Now, the other part that I think this is very relatable to is within relationships. And this is what I see a ton of by women that are in marriages, in relationships, is that they will place blame on the man for not meeting their emotional needs, right? So I just saw a TikTok today of a woman that is a professional, and she gives advice to men that are in sexless marriages and basically gives them advice as to what they're doing wrong to create that situation. And while I understand to a degree, it should be understood from every woman that that is a problem that needs to be resolved within a relationship. And there should be some active drive for her to realize that it's because her emotional uh, her emotional needs are not being met, or she doesn't feel emotionally connected enough, and she needs to be able to communicate that. Like, it cannot be completely on a man to figure that out, and then to figure out the detail of how her emotional needs are going to be met, or how to emotionally connect with her. Because I'm telling you, every person is very different. I mean, for some women, it can be that she wants to spend more time with you, and for some women, it's she needs to spend less time with you. And how is he going to really know that? Well, this professional was talking about how, she can help with the process of figuring that out. And, of course, selling her services. But I just don't think that that's very helpful to have that dynamic. Like, yes, he might be able to figure that out with the service, and he might be able to make progress with that, and might just, be able to read his wife's mind. But it's not really fair that it was all on him to figure out. And so she really needs to hold that responsibility for her happiness, right? Like, she shouldn't have to place that all on her husband to be able to make her happy. She needs to do it. She needs to have that radical responsibility. So I'm really curious to see what you guys think of this, especially in all the scenarios I just discussed. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I am always open to hear from you. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.